Today, in the recent success of BVS, almost making 4 times its budget at $900 million, I'm going to be ranking my favorite live-action Batman films. Now, coming in at my first spot would be none other than Batman Begins. It is the lackluster of the trilogy, not to say that it isn't great, and it has a memorable performance from Christian Bale, some great action sequences, and altogether a great performance of Bruce Wayne. At the beginning of the film, we get to see who he really is and what he really went through to become Batman. I love that aspect, and while the rest of the film might not have been as great, I still love the movie, and I loved everything after that. Now, coming in at my number 5 pick would have to be Batman Returns. Now, following the success of the first film, Tim Burton was given free reign on the sequel, and that's great. We get some of the most iconic, some of the most memorable, and some of the most amazing villains in comic book history in Batman Returns. There's some great cinematography, a great story, funny characters, serious characters, and altogether a great movie. Not to mention that amazing performance from Michael Keaton as one of the best Batmen ever. Now, coming in at my number 4 pick is none other than The Dark Knight. Some of you might be wondering why it's so low on my list, and the fact is that I love the film, but the ones coming after it on my list I love more. Now, this film is an easy, perfect movie. It has great acting, great plot. I've seen this movie 4, maybe 5 times, and each time I love it. The cinematography's great, the dialogue's great, and the movie is just a 5 out of 5 star movie. And if you haven't seen it now, if you haven't seen it by now, I don't know what cave you've been living in. Now, coming in at my number 3 pick is none other than Batman vs. Superman. Now, this is going to surprise you that I rank it above The Dark Knight, but I do. And why I do this is because I felt the film showed us a new Batman. All of these other films have one thing in common, and that's they show the same character, just different takes on him. But Batman vs. Superman showed a new Bruce Wayne and a new Batman. Bruce Wayne was much darker, he's much grittier, and he kills. Batman kills, and I love that aspect. I mean, it's a whole new take on the character, much more akin to that in the comics, and I felt that it was a comic book movie for comic book fans. And as a comic book fan, I knew so much in this movie that I know a normal audience wouldn't get, and that I loved it. I really did, because this movie has comic book blood coursing through its veins. And instead of going the cheap route and making it, a plot accessible to everybody, they made a movie that comic book fans can understand and say, finally, we get a movie where it goes in depth into everything we've come to love. And the Batman in this movie is a perfect example of that, from his costume to his attitude to the great acting from Ben Affleck. It's just a memorable Batman and a great movie. Now, coming in at my number 2 spot is The Dark Knight Rises. Now, again, I like this more than The Dark Knight because its cinematography and plot were amazing. Its acting was also amazing. It brought in a Dark Knight Returns element to Bruce Wayne that had yet to be discovered in the cinema of comic books for Batman. And again, Christian Bale gave a great performance as Batman, and the fact that it was going to be the last film really just made it a very memorable movie. Every second you were watching it, you felt this is going to be the end of a generation. The Dark Knight was a huge hit. Batman Begins was a huge hit. And this movie was like if The Matrix got a sequel today and it was awesome, it would be just a defining moment. That's what The Dark Knight Rises was. It had a great villain. Tom Hardy's Bane was amazing. The action, the acting, the characters, the plot, it was all very climactic and sent the franchise out on a bang. Now, coming in at my number 1 spot is the one, the only, Batman. Michael Keaton and Tim Burton's first comic book film was arguably what set the comic book movie apart and basically what made them what they are today. Michael Keaton, of course, gives a great performance. Jack Nicholson gives my favorite performance as the Joker, and just from the style, Tim Burton's style, to the dialogue, it's all great. Batman, this movie, Batman, if it had never been made, we would not have superhero movies today. This movie showed the world that superhero films can be good and should be made. Without it, we wouldn't have gotten Blade, Iron Man, maybe even the new Avengers movies. They're all because Batman showed the world superhero films are great. And the movie itself is a fantastic movie and probably my favorite Batman film. I've seen this movie probably 5, maybe 6 times, and I love it every time. Now, tell me what you think your favorite live-action Batman movie is, and what you think's wrong with my list. Like and subscribe.